Hey guys, and thank you for coming and watching part 2 of Gaston piano tutorial from the Piano Adventures Disney Level 1 series. That's the red book. And so in today's lesson, we are going to go to where we left off in part 1, which is at the end of measure 31, going into measure 32 on the fermata. No one's slick as Gaston. Anyway. And so we're going to start off with positioning our hand. So at measure 29, our right hand, our thumb is on a D, and our left hand thumb is on middle C. And we start on the finger 4. Not very hard to see why. And now what we need to do is we need to shift our left hand thumb to A. That's what it says right at the bottom of the page, below the left hand, below the bass clef rather. Now, we need to move our right hand to a finger 1 on C, or middle C. And you'll notice that the very next note is C sharp, 2, and then the note after the page turn, which I'll get to in a second, is our finger 3 on D. So it's these 3 notes that are right one after another. Anyway, and so our left hand thumb's on A. Now, we have this new symbol. Maybe you've never seen this before. This is called a fermata, and basically what that means is we're allowed to hold the note for as long as we feel is going to be musically satisfying, so we can kind of really make it dramatic by holding it a little longer. No one's slick as Gaston. Yeah. Anyway, and so for ease of the page turn, just remember those first 2 notes. And so we're going to start at the pickups to measure 34. So our left hand thumb's on A, right hand thumb's on C. We start no one's D, A, no one's quick. And notice how we did those 3 notes again, but this time we didn't have the fermata. One more time from no one's slick, A, C sharp, D, E, G, A, cross. Now right there, you're going to want to make sure that you cross with your finger 2 onto this B flat. So our thumb was on A, and we're going to cross over. We're going to start one measure before that. Ready, go. On no one's neck as incredibly thick as Gaston, for there's no man in town half as manly. We'll go over those notes starting on the word neck, measure 38. So this is line number 2. Starting on B flat in our left hand, and then our right hand's going to immediately take over with the thumb. 1, 2, 3, 1. Ready, go. B flat, C, D, E, F, G, G, F, E, F, E, F, G, F, E, F, E, D, F, B flat. And there's a couple things that I think are worth talking about in that small little section. So we can see at the end of line 2, we have the end of a phrase marking on thick as Gaston. And then we have a new phrase marking be written where it says, for there's no man. And so what they mean by having 2 separate lines, or like those notes aren't connected, is that we're going to lift up our hand. Thick as Gaston, lift, for there's no. And I'll do it in fast motion so you can hear that. Neck as incredibly thick as Gaston, for there's no man. And so you immediately go back down, but there is this sense that those notes do not belong together. They don't sound like they're connected to each other. One other thing that's kind of important is at measure 42, so we have this 5, 4, 3. So we start on a finger 5, and these are 3 descending notes. And then in measure 43, we have another set of 3 descending notes. 4, 3, 2. So if you can kind of recognize that musical pattern, it's going to be exceptionally helpful. Just doing it on the fly. So we'll start at measure 42, going to the end of the line. 1, 2, 3, 1, ready, go. 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, 2, 4, B flat. 1, 2, 3. Then here we're going to be regularly switching back and forth between our right and our left hand. Perfect, a pure paragon. So I'll say those notes out loud. 1, ready, go. F, B flat, F, E, B flat, E, D. Now, a similar thing that I was bringing up earlier, where we had this end of a slur marking and the start of a new one, is typically, so in this part, the perfect, the pure paragon, typically the last note of a slur, so on the word fect or the B flat in the left hand, that second note of the line, typically the note that's at the end of the slur marking is going to be played just a little bit detached. Perfect, a pure paragon. Yeah. All except for that last one, where I ended up playing 2 notes that were detached at the end, and I don't do that. Perfect, a pure paragon. And so from here, we actually end up repeating a lot of the material that we just learned on this page 3. So we put our right hand thumb on that middle C again. Who plays darts? And our left hand thumb is on A. So I'll count us off. Who plays? 1, 2, 3, 1. Ready, go. Darts like Gaston. Who breaks hearts like Gaston? Who's much more than the sum of his parts like Gaston? Now, what you're going to notice in this section, or that second line of page 3, is we're playing the same G note, but it's asking us to shift our hand. So we do the B flat, C, D, E, F, G, G. And one thing that some students have a lot of trouble with is being able to quickly get into that new position. And part of it is that you got to make sure that the note before it, so we get to that finger 5 on G on the word his, and we actually have to make that note just a little bit short, or playing it staccato or detached, and that's going to send us into the new hand position. And so what I might recommend to do as practice for this is you do the 5 steps of sound, then the sum of his parts, and don't let yourself hesitate. Immediately come down, and if you hit a wrong note, that's okay, but you need to be building in the motion of not letting yourself stop. Short, long. Yeah, so with that, we're going to start again at measure 54 to the end of the phrase marking. So that's measure 57. Parts like Gaston, question mark. 1, 2, 3, 1, ready, go. More than the sum of his parts like Gaston. And here's that end of a phrase marking. Ready, go. As a specimen, yes, I'm intimidating. Now, earlier we shifted our right hand, so our middle finger was on G, or our thumb is technically on E when we get into that position. And so we have to move our left hand into position, getting the left hand thumb to be right next door to the right hand for intimidating. This is the third line, the last 2 measures. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend shifting both hands at the same time at measure 55, or at the end of measure 55, I'd recommend doing the thing that we practiced where you jump into the new position and then you have like a full line to get your left hand into position. So starting there, we're going to start on finger 4, intimidating. And so we start right hand, 1, ready, go. 4, 3, C sharp, D. Make sure that 2 finger, that pointer, is on the C sharp. Rhythmically, we'll also want to make sure that we're keeping this nice half note, walk, half note, walk, intimidating, half note, walk, half note, walk. I'd encourage you to clap this. Half note, walk, half note, walk, half note. And being able to loop that rhythmic pattern will definitely help you, especially because we're playing in what's called triple meter, or where we have 3 beats in every measure. So with that, we're ready to go on to the final line, which is measure 62. Now, our right hand thumb was on E, our left hand thumb was on D, but notice the first note of measure 62 is actually on F with our finger 3. So we have to shift our right hand down, and there's this awkward moment where the hands are going to kind of be overlapping, but you don't need to have your right hand thumb quite yet. As soon as you play the F, you can release the left hand and move it out of the way. E, D, E, F, G, F, 2, 3, chord. And we'll just move it down 1 note. So both hands end up moving down 1 note. But I wouldn't recommend doing them exactly at the same time. Let the left hand finish dating, right hand, then left is in position. Ston, 2, 3, together. So, with that, we have kind of completed all of the basic material. We arrived at the end. We have that double bar line. And now, why don't we start at measure 32. So this is the no ones. And we're going to go at a very slow, controlled tempo for you to be able to play along with me. All right, so make sure your left hand thumb is on A, your right hand thumb is on C. All right. 1. So we'll start with the C, the no one. Ready, go. No and change, and then slick as Gaston. No one's quick as Gaston. No one's neck as incredibly thick as Gaston. For there's no man in town half as manly. 3, 1, 2, 3. Perfect, a pure paragon. Rest. Who changed the plays? Darts like Gaston. Who breaks hearts like Gaston? Who's much more than the sum of his parts like Gaston? As a specimen, yes, I'm in Tim, a left hand, right hand guy that Gaston, 2, 3 together. So one thing that kind of piqued my interest as I was going through that is just reminding you. So in this section on the slick as Gaston, no one's quick as Gaston, we have several of these measures where, so say in measure 34, where the first note, it's slurred into the second note, and then the second note has a staccato marking underneath it, and that's going to turn into a long, short, short, long, long, short, short, long, short, short, long, short, short, if we just looped it. Now, obviously, in measure 35, we don't have the exact same articulation. All 3 of these notes are slurred, but then in measure 35, we have the same. So it's kind of alternating between long, short, short, long, long, short, short, long, long. and then the pattern obviously breaks. But that's what makes these little portions of little sections kind of musical, because there is some semblance of a musical pattern that we're able to latch on to quickly before it's off and it's gone. But it's enough to get our attention and have something be recognizable. So without further ado, I think the last thing as a part of this tutorial will be me playing from the very beginning at a very controlled speed, but maybe a little brisker than what we did there. And you can play along with me or just listen. So we're going to start with our right hand thumb on the C, left hand thumb on the B. And I'm just finding my tempo first. So this is a good idea for you too. Don't just start right out the gate. Look for that speed that feels like it's the perfect speed. So this 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I got my tempo here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, ready. Gosh, it disturbs me to see you, Gaston, looking so down in the dumps. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Every guy he loved to be you, Gaston, even when taking your lump shift. There's no man in town as admired as you. You're everyone's favorite guy. 1, 2, 3. Everyone's awe and inspired by you, and it's not very hard to see why. No one's slick as Gaston, no one's quick as Gaston, no one's neck as incredibly thick as Gaston, for there's no man in town half as manly. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, a pure paragon, who plays darts like Gaston, who breaks hearts like Gaston, who's much more than the sum of his parts like Gaston. As a specimen, yes, I'm intimidating. My, what a guy, oh Gaston. So hopefully you were able to stay along for that whole thing. And just a last couple of ideas to keep in mind as you're working to perfect this piece. So just making sure that you keep the sense of a strong beat 1, meaning that beats 2 and 3 are just a little bit lighter. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. That'll keep this feeling of the music kind of swaying left and right. Yeah. Now, the other thing is every time I have a long sound, so we have these dotted half notes and there's 2 of them tied together, I'm not just letting myself go brain dead there. I'm actively thinking about where the steady pulse is so that when I restart a measure 9, for example, I know how fast to play. Dumps, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Every guy. You run the risk if you don't do what's called subdividing, is you won't be very precise in your rhythm, and we don't want that. We want everything to sound nice and polished. Now, the last thing that I noticed as I was playing is on the 3rd page. So we start off, this is a forte volume at measure 34. If you recall, that means that we're going to be playing loudly. And then at measure 41, so this is at the end of line 2, we have the break in the slur marking, and all of a sudden we have this mezzo forte. So we could even all of a sudden change our dynamic level, and that's going to really sound like they don't belong together, those 2 phrases. Maybe I could demonstrate that from No One's Slick. No one's slick as Gaston, no one's quick as Gaston, no one's neck is incredibly thick like Gaston, for there's no man in town half as manly. And hopefully you were able to detect that there was a all of a sudden change in the dynamics or the volume. So anyway, that concludes our second part of Gaston. Feel free, if you have any additional questions or if you would like to submit a video, feel free to get my email from the description below, and you can send it on my way. I'd be happy to do an analysis if that's something that would be interesting to certain people who are watching this. I hope you enjoyed. Happy practicing. Bye-bye.